So property window is just an extension of variable window, whereby it provides again more details about the variable that you're working with. So things like property, how that variable is stored, what is the size, and so forth. So you're just trying to have an interface that you can be able to work with. So these are the main things that you should have. And today I want to start with data entry. So we see how do you key in data into STATA. And I'm going to create okay, let's see if I'll get the file. Anyway, I think I'll use that as an assignment for you, but let me just, I think over here it is. So if you check on your student portal, you will have the file that I'm going to use. And I'm also presenting my screen, so you should be able to follow through with me. And I'm going to teach you data entry. Of course, I told you in all these programs, we'll be learning basically three things. We need to understand how to do data entry, data management, and analysis, and then you need different software. So of course, with SPSS, I'm sure by now you're already somewhere, and now we're going to do the same with STATA. And this is the file that I'm going to use for us to learn that. Though just a disclaimer, STATA is not the best software for you to do data entry, and you realize maybe what I'm teaching today, you might not be able to apply it in real world out there because it comes with a lot of trouble. But anyway, for the sake of learning, we just see how to do data entry. So I have some information here, and assuming I have this form which contains some data, and the variables that are there, I have ID, I have age, I also have, let me add one more so that, so let me insert a column on the right. Let me just add the name of the respondent. Okay, I think this will be better. So this is what you're going to code. And I have ID, name, age, language, marital status, whether somebody is a smoker or not, and then there's some sort of medicine that you're receiving. So how do we key in all this information into STATA? Like I said, we're going to use commands, and commands are going to write them down here on the command section. So just an overview about commands. In STATA, all commands, you write them in lowercase. So when you're writing a command, make sure they are in lowercase, otherwise you'll be able to get some errors. But the variable name or whatever you create after your functions or commands, you can write how you want, so you're not limited towards that. So let's go ahead and create now the variable. And after creating variables, we're now going to do data entry. And the first variable that I'm creating is ID. So one thing you also need to know about STATA is it recognizes everything as number. And if you're not writing a number, then you have to specify or inform it that whatever you are writing is not a number. So what is the first command? So the first command is input. So basically we're inputting some information into the software. And as you can see, input is in lowercase. I'll have a space and then caps because I want ID to be in capitals. After ID, I have name, but it's tricky with ID because I think we're borrowing the same concept, but I think it would be better if we use the concept in name. So what does that mean? So remember I said STATA treats everything as a number. So if I read the ID, I'll be expecting the ID of ID number. ID means maybe some sort of number, but name is not number. So because name contain alphabetic characters, so we refer to them as strings. Okay. So when you're involving a string, you have to specify. So I'll write there str, which is now the command to instruct the software that the variable I'm creating is not numeric, but it's a string variable, or it contains alphabetic characters. And then I have to specify also the number of characters that can be accommodated in that variable name. So remember in SPSS, we were talking about width. So the same case has to apply also in STATA. So I can limit and say the names of my respondent can be limited to 30 characters. And then space, I can say now the variable name is name. So just to clarify, between str and 30, there's no space. But between str30 and name, there's a space. You can see, or you can watch closely on what is presented on your screen, and then maybe from there you can proceed and now concentrate on your computer. So once I have name, I'll go to the next one, which is age. And of course, age is numeric, so I don't have to specify. After age, I'll have language. After language, so language again, it's categorical, so I'll be assigning values of 1 and 2 to represent French, German, and Spanish, just like the way we're coding gender. Of course, you understand that. So after language, I will have marital status. Maybe something key in here is when you're creating variable name, make sure you don't have spaces. So between marital and status, I have to use an underscore, or you can combine it. Same case applies for what do you call it, education level. So education level, you can't have spaces. Either use an underscore or write them as one word. After marital status, I think smoker. Same drill. I'll assign a value of 1 for someone who smokes and 2 or 0 for someone who doesn't. Medication, it's a continuous, so I'll just have medication. We press enter and check your variable view. Now you can see that we have some variables displayed. Oh, the session is also recorded. So again, these classes, you'll be able to access them through our YouTube channel. So maybe for now, you can just concentrate more with what I'm doing. And then at your own free time, as you watch through the videos, you can be able to now do them practically on your side. So once I have the variables created, the only thing that the software expects from me is now the observation. But you can also tell that some codes have been presented now on the review section. Okay. So let's key in. So I'm going to have some respondent, and I don't want to necessarily focus more with what is presented here. But anyway, let's just use this one. For ID, if I start with K1, the software will reject because K is not a number, and I've coded ID as numeric. So I'll just write 1 to mean the ID of the first respondent. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll just say 1 space. After ID, I can have the first person as George. I don't know if there was a name here. Of course, there's no name, so I'm just making sure I'm creating some data. So of course we can be doing, I think I can just be doing this on the command section. So after George, Age I think is a continuous variable. So I'll have 29. Age I have French. So let's have 1 to denote French as a language, and then also 1 to denote somebody who's single, and then also 1 again for someone who's a smoker, and then lastly we have 1 6. If I press enter, now you can tell that I have 1 observation entered, so 1 there. Can come to the second person as 2. The name is, and then I have 3 6. I hope you're getting the drill so that I don't have to be doing all this. For German, I can have value of 2. There's a spaces between every observation. For single person, we said will be represented with the value of 1. And then non-smoker should be 2. And then 1 2. So you can continue. So let me just have the third person, but this should be the last one. And then now maybe you'll continue with that. So I'll have Jane. Jane is 39 years old. Let's Spanish pick 3. Then now married will be 2. She's not a smoker. And then I have 1 8. So I'll have 2 1 8. So I hope you're getting the drill. So let's dive into something else. Unless somebody has an issue up to this point. And the next thing is now, how do you tell the software that you're done with data entry? Okay, so remember right now the software expects that you're still doing data entry. So anything you enter there should be conforming to how you've created your variable. And for me to tell the software that I'm no longer doing data entry, the command that I will use is end, which basically means that from now moving forward, now I can be able to do other things. So if I press enter, I'm not getting any error, which is a good thing. And it also indicates that I'm in the same page with the software. I will browse, which is the third command. So just go and write browse. And what does browse mean? So immediately execute that, you realize the backend now will be displayed and you can now see how your data looks like. By now you can tell between the different variables that are there. So the ID, name, all the way to medication. So what means here is as you are doing some stuff on the front end, this is now the data that you are creating, which looks more or less the same as an Excel spreadsheet. So you can close it and continue. But now I want to introduce another command called edit, which works more or less the same as browse, but edit now enables you to make adjustments or changes in the database. So assuming you had maybe a fourth respondent, so you're done doing data entry, but maybe out of nowhere somebody comes in and say, hey, there was this fourth person who needs to be there. So you can use edit to make some editing in your data. So let's call the fourth person Edwin. So I can add that information from here. So I can just say for the name is Edwin 21 German. So for German we had 2, and then marital status single, which is 1, smoker, no, which is 2 and then 9. So that is one way of adding now cases, just in case you were done with data entry, but you forgot to have some cases there. So you can just edit, go and add whatever you're having. So you can close that, and the same drill, you realize that as you are also working on the back end, some codes was being generated on the front end. So it's the same thing. So we know how to add a case. Let's talk about how to add a variable. So let me just browse again, and then assuming there was a, okay. So assuming there was a variable called course, so sorry, religion. I think you use that. So I want to add a course called, sorry, a variable called religion. So what command will I use that? So I'm going to use a command called generate. And just to emphasize so that we be on the same page, there are two things that you can add here. So I've just shown you how to add a case, just in case you're done doing data entry, but there's a case that you're supposed to include with the rest of the cases. Two, right now I'm showing you how to add a variable, just in case you forgot to key in a variable when you are coding the others. So like I said, you'll use a command called generate, and I want to generate a variable called education, sorry, religion. And I want, so since I don't have the observation for religion in mind, so I will equate a religion with a dot or a full or a comma, or what do you call it, a full stop. That means the variable religion will not be having any observation. So if I execute that, you'll notice that at my variable view, now I have a new variable called religion. If I browse, I can be able to tell that now I have a new variable called religion, and religion doesn't have any observation. I can still close that, and this time if I edit, so that I make changes, because I need to key in the religion for my respondent. So I can be able now to come and say, George is a Christian, maybe Anne is also a Christian. You can have, of course, you now get the drill. So you can have different groupings in terms of religion. So it doesn't have to be specific with what I have. If I close that, then you realize again, I have now some codes which have been generated in the front side as I was working on the backend. Let's talk about labeling our variable. And if you recall, during SPSS classes, we said to label your variable basically means you're providing more information. So we want to label variable ID as identity. We can have name as name, we can have age as age in years, but the goal here is the role of label is to provide more information about that variable. In case somebody else comes and see your data set, they'll be able to be on the same page or to understand what you are doing. So the command that you're going to use there is label variable, and pay attention to the spelling of label. And if I write label variable, so I need to specify what variable am I adding label. So I'll advise that you be using the variable section. So just take your cursor and point in any of the variables, and you realize there's an arrow that will point sideways. If you click on that arrow, the name will be displayed down here on the command section. So this will avoid the essence for you to write the variable name. And why is that? If you write the variable name not in the same way that it was defined up here, then you'll be getting an error because the software will not be able to identify what you're talking about. So it's good when you use the arrow. I will label variable ID to be, so I'll introduce speech marks. I'll say identity, identity number, and because it's a string, so I have to enclose it in a speech mark. I execute that, and you can tell that in your variable view, now you have the label identity number. Let's do the same for name. Label variable, use arrow to get the variable name down there, introduce speech marks, and I said let name just be name. We can do age. Now age, you want to be age in years, so just introduce speech marks, age in years. Language is just language, or we can say preferred language. So again, with STATA, you have to write all like the command in full. So for instance, variable, I can just say label var instead of variable. And then what is the name of the variable that I want to label? Language. Introduce speech mark and say preferred language. Marital status. So I hope you're getting the drill. So label variable marital status. Smoker. So the education goes to, you can just say medication. So let's say number of medicine taken. And lastly, religion. I think now we know how to label our variable. The next thing I want to introduce before we call it a day, now let's talk about how to label the values. So for instance, for language, I want to, instead of having one here, I want to tell that one is French, and then two is German. The same way in SPSS, we're saying now one is gender, is male, two is female. So we have to label or to define what those one and two are, because somebody else might not know what was one or what was two unless they have this form with them. So how do we do that? We're going to use two commands back to back. One, the first command is a command called what do you call it? Label define, and then we'll also use label value. So just watch what I'm doing, and then you should be good to go. So I will label you define a variable language, or I'll say in language, so I'll put a space and say one space. So one is somebody who preferred French, space two, somebody who preferred German. If I execute that, I'm not getting an error, which is a good thing. It means I'm in the same page with my software. And remember, I said I'm going to use two commands back to back. So the second one is label value. Label value language. I'll explain what that means. So I think if you now browse, you'll be able to see the change that has happened, whereby now instead of having two on languages, now we have French and German. Let me take questions if there's any up to this point. So maybe you can add on the. So what you do is I'm going to stop there for today. But now I'll leave you with this video recording together with this document. So make sure you have all the 10 respondents coded in your system. And then now, so that we don't repeat the same thing, copy the entire content that you have on your review window can just Control A to highlight everything. So let's just keep this code so that tomorrow we don't have to repeat the same thing. Like I said, go to your review window, Control A to highlight everything, or you can just right click and select all, and then go to your do file. So if you check on these items, you'll see a do file. Open a do file. Okay, let's make sure we're on the same page. So I've said copy all the codes that you have, go to your do file. If you open your do file, you'll see a blank page like what I'm displaying. So this is more like the syntax that we were developing in SPSS. If you Control V, okay, make sure I'm doing the right thing. So copy all the codes that you are using, go to your do file, and then paste there. Save that file, which you will go to the option of save as, and then right there, data entry. So keep this file in your desktop. Make sure you're saving this file somewhere in your desktop so that tomorrow I'll be able to pick from there. So save, and if you confirm in your desktop, you should be having a file called data entry. So let me just make sure we're on the same page. So this is the file. So tomorrow we will start our class with that file. Before we leave, now we're no longer going to be sharing links in your respective, in the class WhatsApp group. That means all of you now, you will be moving towards your student portal, and this is where you'll be able to access all the materials that you need to have, both the recorded video, your certificates, and also we can be able to connect you with maybe potential employers in future, because now we will have your profile intact. So before tomorrow's class, go to our website, or the link has been shared with you, register your details, and make sure the admin enrolls you in the course. So after you have registered your details, text the admin WhatsApp number, the course that you're doing. So just say, enroll me in this course. Let me take question or concern if there's any. Otherwise, I wish to stop there until tomorrow.